We are live. Hey, everyone, this is David Osk and Dr. Andy Garrett, and we are excited to talk about gratitude. And one of the biggest challenges that I experienced and really trying to experience the benefits of gratitude, I think to some extent, just about everyone knows that being grateful has a ton of health benefits for you, right? That we know that being grateful and experiencing gratitude, expressing gratitude, that it lowers blood pressure, right? It has all kinds of heart benefits, other health benefits. It increases your, the impact that you have in relationship. It makes relationships more fulfilling. When we feel grateful, we actually tend to perform better at work. Like, it just has this ridiculous list of benefits that are completely game changing, that are transformational. But the challenge I always had in trying to really experience gratitude was being able to get from the intelligence, like the intellectual place of saying, I know I should be grateful for these things, to actually feeling it in my heart, right? So that my head and my heart are matched and I start to feel that authentic connection to gratitude. So that's what I want to talk about today. The things that I did that are the general suggestions on, creating gratitude, becoming grateful, and what didn't work, and some of the most powerful things that I have done to actually start to make that transformation where I'm actually able to feel grateful, I'm able to express it, and just the incredible benefits that produces. So, Mr. David Osk, what do you think? So obviously we're bringing the subject up because it's heading into the Thanksgiving holiday. It's supposed to be a time of giving thanks and being grateful. Of course, the research shows, that stress levels absolutely skyrocket during the holidays. I think being around family members and the stress, the pressure it puts on sometimes can create these feedback loops and put a lot of pressure on people. So would love to hear, what your experience of being thankful and grateful, and some of the things you've done that have worked and that haven't worked.
It's interesting. I think in general, when someone feels thankful for something, there's no question that that's a positive, emotion, right? I mean, it's kind of wrapped in the word joy. You're like, boy, that feels good. Or even being told, hey, I'm thankful for you. I mean, there's just something about that that's like, wow, really? Me, that kind of thing. And I think in our culture, though, more lately, of course, mental health is front and center. I mean, you mentioned just, statistically around the holidays, right? Emotions run pretty high. We're like, okay, I'm kind of going back into some of these, whether it's friends or families or big gatherings or whatever it is, and there's some anxiety around that. And at the same time, in our culture right now, for years, really, mental health is something that's very important. And so a lot of times people will very kind of flippantly say, well, hey, something I do is I just make a thankful list every morning, and and at night I do it again. I'm just thankful for the things I happened this day, that kind of stuff. And I love what you said at the beginning about going from head to heart, because quite often in the past, right, just dealing with some stress or something, I'll be like, okay, I admire that person, they do that, I'm going to start doing the same thing. But I didn't really internalize it. I didn't really make it, my own. And even, what if there's something that's really unique to me specifically, right? That's different from you. That's different from, the quote unquote, the person next to me, that really makes me light up. And so I think the things that we are, I like, by the way, I love that you used the word grateful at the beginning here and didn't kind of wear out the word thankfulness. I like the word grateful better. Like, it's full of greatness. So when I assign greatness to something, I'll be honest, lately in my life, for whatever reason, I'm drawn to art. And I'm like, so in the past I would say, well, I'm grateful for my car, or my kids, or kind of these just, functional things, or people that I love, or stuff like that. But lately it's been, I'm thankful that I saw something beautiful today, because it moved me. It changed something in me. It made me lift my eyes a little bit and stop, and maybe even took my breath away. So anyway, I love this topic. I'm a pretty positive person, most of the time overall. And I think gratefulness is is kind of the new Prozac.
It certainly has that ability, right? I mean, it really, one of my favorite gratitude exercises is a gratitude writing exercise where you just take 10 to 15 minutes to, identify someone that has really had a big impact on your life.
Oh
You're
yeah.
supposed to just sit down and write down a letter to them, expressing, I am grateful to you because, and then write down very specifically, here's the things that you did, here's the impact it had on me, right? And this is how it's affected me or whatever. And then to actually go and give that letter to that person.
Man.
And that exercise has been shown to increase happiness by up to 30%. And the simple act of writing it, it didn't just last in the moment, right? It gave a massive boost almost immediately of
Yeah.
thankfulness, of happiness and joy. But the benefits lasted sometimes up to 6 or 9 months later, right? That it was that profound. And when you take the time to actually give it to the person, you're spreading, the benefits of that. So it's not only you experiencing that gratitude, but you're sharing it with someone, and that person has a massive boost in happiness as well, right? So it really starts to become powerful. And oddly enough, before I even was aware of this particular exercise and tried the benefits, the scientific benefits around it, I had done this when I was about 21, 22 years old with my grandpa, who was a massively positive figure in my life, someone that really believed in me, someone
Same
that,
here.
yeah. And so I took the time, because I was kind of going through some changes in my life, and I wanted to let him know, just how impactful he had been in my life. And I really procrastinated in doing this, right? Like, I don't know why, but it happened to be when I finally sent him the letter. It was when he was going through a particularly challenging time in life. He'd just gone through open heart surgery. Unfortunately, my aunt, his daughter, had passed away in a kind of a tragic circumstances. His brother, who was the vice president of his company, had passed away from cancer. And so he was going through a lot of adversity. People were trying to kick him out of his own company that he started. And so I finally, finished the letter and really was specific. This is, the impact you had on me, and this is how it's helped me through some really tough times. I gave it to him, and he received it at exactly the moment he needed to receive that, right? And so here's this person that had poured so much love and just, kind of goodness into my life, and it helped pick him up at a time when he was really needing it. And I
Right.
didn't know this, right, until he passed away. But he actually, the letter had such a big impact on him that he made several copies, and he had one at his office that he had there at all times. He had one on his, nightstand, and he had one that he brought with him everywhere he went. And I
Mm.
actually have the original, the one that he had with him everywhere he went. It's like all wrinkled. You can barely see the writing on it anymore. But I have that with me, and sometimes I pull it out and I read it, and it's amazing when I read that. Right, it brings tears to my eyes, and it spread gratitude. Right, it was, and it did it in a way that was really transformational. It felt so incredible to give that to my grandpa, and the way he received it was life changing for him.
And
So
so I won't go into too much detail here, but your grandpa was a wildly successful, nationally known businessman, and the we often picture, right, people who, in our spheres of influence, while they seem kind of bulletproof, they seem all that kind of stuff. That's just not true, period, right? Everyone, it doesn't matter your net worth, fame, lack of it, whatever. Everybody is in need, of that kindness. That's all there is to it. And I think, isn't it fascinating that that you can barely read the ink on it, right? He opened that thing how many times then to wear it out like that? Because he needed
yeah,
it and he enjoyed it. It was full of greatness, right, for him.
yep.
And here, yeah, you both get to enjoy that beauty there even still, and we all get to enjoy it here as you're talking about it. It's fantastic.
There's something about writing things down, right? And so, on one hand, I know that I've taken the time to do the gratitude list.
Yeah.
Harvard ran a big study where they were looking at the effects of gratitude, and the way they defined gratefulness or gratitude, a grateful person, was someone that wrote down three things that they were grateful for in the morning, and then they went out and they actually said them, they expressed them, right? And then they wrote three things at night that they were grateful
Oh,
for, and they went and expressed them. And so, oddly enough, if you wrote down five things that you're grateful for, right, then technically you don't meet their criteria. If you wrote down 20 things, but you don't express them, you also don't meet their criteria for gratitude.
yeah.
But for the people that did this, that wrote down three things and then they went out and actually expressed them, man, you should read the list of the impact that it had. I mean, these were people that were absolutely the healthiest, the happiest, the best relationships. And so, part of it is about really taking it on as an identity, right? To see it as something that is valuable. I love what you were saying about the way you experience art. It reminds me of just stopping, almost to kind of, proverbial smell the roses, to be
Yeah.
mindful in the moment, to appreciate beauty, to appreciate kindness, to appreciate sometimes the little minute things, right, that happen. In the mornings when my kids wake me up, right, that kind of experience, feeling my son's breath on my face as he's, daddy, daddy, man, I am so grateful for those moments,
Hmm.
but stopping, it's easy to miss them. It's easy to always feel in such a rush and be in such a hurry that I don't stop to acknowledge and really appreciate, right,
Yeah.
the meaning and the significance of those moments.
Yeah. And like you said, it's that head to heart connection. I mean, we're not robots. I mean, we have to have that alignment. And I think that, yeah, what does greatness, when we say full of great, grateful, what does that look like, to you? I mean, the listener here, right? What is that? How would you internalize that today? But what might it look like next week or a year from now? That kind of thing. And you got to give yourself, as you grow and mature and expand, you got different people in your life and circumstances and, kids or, grandkids, all that kind of stuff. It's, what does that look like? What is full of greatness? I don't know. I like turning things around and kind of turning them upside down a little bit to better internalize those things. And I
Yeah.
think thankfulness is just where it's at.
Yeah, and I'd love to see, right, what other people have done, either things that they've done that didn't have maybe the effect that they had hoped it would, maybe gratitude practices that they do, right, that have just been life changing for them.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think there's any shortage. It's kind of like getting in good shape, right? It's not a shortage of not knowing what to do, but
Yeah.
it's the ability to implement, right, and to make it a commitment, something that's a part of what you value, right, that you're making it a part of your daily life so that it becomes part of your identity.
Yeah.
That's where it shifts from something that, like, I had to mindfully think. It felt like a chore, right? For a long time it felt like a task, like I was checking off a box. And
Yeah.
it wasn't until the point where I kept practicing it enough, right, and I was able to slow down, and I had to get more specific, right? Because I think you initially do some of the generic things, right? I'm grateful for my wife, I'm grateful for my kids, I'm grateful for, health, all
Yeah.
these things. And when I had to start getting more, specific and detailed, and all of a sudden, like, lasered in on really specific aspects of things,
Yeah.
it started to become much more personal to me, right? And so there was something about repetition, there was something about writing it down, there was something about being, really, really specific in what I wrote down, but then taking the time to write a letter, taking the time to find multiple ways in which I was expressing gratitude. That's where it really elevated from a checkbox, right? I know I should be grateful for these things. I know these are good things in my life, to, man, I feel this incredible, like, this swelling, this rising up of gratitude in me that
Love that.
just fills my heart up.
And you get to assign it meaning, right?
Yeah.
My brother came over, I guess it's been a couple of weeks ago, and we walked 7 miles, and probably one of the best conversations we've ever had. Like, just connected. Like, man, it was so great. But there were some moments, even niching down, if you will, into that moment of gratefulness, that I remember a few phrases, a few words and things that, yeah. So that level of detail is I think it's really fascinating. It's like you get the microscope out, or the telescope, right, and start looking into, look further in. It gets better and better. By the way, you had mentioned somebody, writing. You had sent that letter to your grandpa. My friend Neil actually sent me a thankful text, which was quite extensive here a couple of weeks ago, and
Yeah.
I was moved by the time that it took him to craft this. Like, you could tell, like, he sat there for many minutes. I don't know, maybe it was a half an hour,
Yeah.
and connected his heart to this letter of gratefulness. And it was like, I actually screenshotted it and sent it to 2 other people, because I was like, holy moly. And it had such an impact. And here we are 2 weeks later, I'm still talking about it. So that's
Man,
great.
it's a great challenge. If there's a challenge that I can offer to anybody listening to this, is to take 10 minutes, I promise you, right? Take 10 minutes to write down,
Mm,
write to someone that you're grateful for, right? Get really specific and what it is that they do, that's impacted you, and
yeah,
then write down what impact it's had on you.
yeah,
There's been a few people that have also written letters to me or have shared that with me. I have those letters, some of them are 20 years old.
right.
And I can't tell you, there's been numerous times in my life, right, where I was going through a difficult moment and I pulled those letters out. In fact, as I'm saying this, I'm like, man, I'm going to go home and pull those letters out tonight. And when I read them, it fills me up, right? It
Yeah,
really helps me. It's helped me to get through difficult times. It's helped me to recognize, who I can be, who I'm capable of being when I'm, being my most authentic self.
so
And
great.
so they're really, I hope that you do not underestimate the impact of taking the time to write out what you're grateful for and specifically directing it towards someone that's had a big impact in your life and
Yeah.
sending it to them. It is absolutely transformational. You have no idea what they might be going through right now, right?
Yeah.
This might be exactly what they need in this moment, right? To lift them out of a
Mm.
challenging moment in time. And even if it's not right now, they might have one coming up pretty soon. And that letter is the key, right, to helping them to really be able to find the robustness within themselves.
And it's fascinating because you feel good doing it. It takes some courage, though, right? It takes some
Yeah.
courage to do something like that, especially depending on who it is. If it's, someone you love deeply or admire, that kind of stuff, just to send them something of, from your heart. I mean, it's kind of a vulnerable place to be. By the way, you mentioned you've saved those. I've got a file cabinet full of them here, and I got one. It's a little folder in the cabinet that's just jammed. I need to make another one, but I save any correspondence I get that's meaningful like that. I never get rid of that stuff. I love it. When Lisa turned 40, a couple years ago, I sent a message out to friends and family and so on. It ended up being a lot larger uh, email blast than I thought. I didn't realize we kind of had that many friends or whatever. And anyway, just said, hey, would you mind just sending my wife and your friend Lisa, whatever, a message, just telling her what she means to you. And
That's
I think
awesome.
she got 200 or something. It
Yeah.
was like, it took
That's
hours to go
amazing.
through these. And my wife is not emotional. Like, she is, but she doesn't show it very much, right?
Yeah.
I mean, she's just like, I can't keep reading these. I mean, she's getting choked up. She ended up making this whole, folder, putting them all in there. And I mean, it's fascinating, but it goes both directions, doesn't it? It's like my heart expands and the person reading it, their heart, becomes fuller, of
Yeah.
greatness. Love that.
We went through a period, and I'll admit, we haven't done it. Part of it is just as my family evolves. Some of the exercises we do and the things we try and practice, but we have a family identity, right? We have a sense of these is what we value. These are the character strengths that we want to help instill and grow in our kids. The things that we try and model and exemplify for them. So gratitude was one of those things, and so we had a practice where once a month each one of us would write a letter, right? And so initially we kind of all wrote letters to each other, just saying, Dad, my daughter, this is what I'm grateful for. And I would write letters to my kids and to my wife. And then, after a few months, we're like, all right, we got to expand our circle now. We've all written letters to each other. And so my kids started writing letters to the neighbors, right? And they started writing letters to some of their dearest friends. And we were writing letters to our friends and to other family members. And man, it
Mhm.
brought so much joy, right? And it deepened friendships, it deepened connections. I've got a video of my daughter writing one of the letters to it's one of her neighbor friends. It's just one of the sweetest girls. And you can see my daughter, the smile on her face as she's writing this out, and she wrote very specifically, I'm grateful for your kindness and the way that you always make me smile, right? And she wrote a very specific letter. And, those things to this day, oddly enough, nice thing about Apple is sometimes you can find moments where it puts a little music to it.
Yeah.
And so we actually were watching that video this morning where she wrote the letter to the neighbor, and my daughter said, Dad, I want to do that again. Can I write a letter to someone? I was like, yes, you can, sweet
Oh,
girl. So
that's so great. Man.
one thing I want to cover that I think is also important with gratitude, I heard this in the message at church, at Mariners this weekend, but the idea that gratitude is also about, appreciating where you're at and not wanting more, right? It's being content. and saying that where I'm at good enough. And our pastor has this really funny thing where he says, I want you to go out to your car and, even if it's got flat tires or bald tires, right? And it's got dents and it's got dings, and say, you are good enough and I don't want anything more, right? I want you to look in the mirror and I want you to look at your body, and I want you to say, as imperfect as it is. So it was, he's done this every year for 30 years. So people know it and go along with it. But he's, there's that really that tendency to want to feel like, well, I'll be happy or content when I get to this point, right? But the thing is there are people that are at that point right now, and they're doing the same thing. They're saying, well, I'll be content, right? When, I think right now it's the bigger house, right? Well, they think I'll be content when I get the second house, right? The people that have two houses say, well, I'll be content when I get that private jet. And so the ability to say that, hey, I am happy and content right here, right now. There's nothing else I want. It's tough. We are not a society, right, that is used to practicing. I think we're so always, we got to do that next thing. We got to keep moving forward. We got to keep wanting bigger and better. And I still have growth. I still have ambitious goals, but the ability to stop and pause and say, you know what, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be right now. And I'm grateful and content right now. There's nothing else I need or want right now in this moment. And that doesn't mean I'm not going to work my butt off, right, to add value and help people transform, so I can impact more people. But for this moment right here, right now, I'm content exactly as things are.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about that?
Man, that's powerful. It made me think of that moment. I forget the characters' names in the Count of Monte Cristo. The main love interest. Who the two men are fighting for, right? And she made the kind of the young spoiled man. She made a comment to him. She said, you're just mad at him because he can enjoy a thimble or something like just completely mundane more than you enjoyed your pony as a little boy. He had everything, but he couldn't stand this guy because he would enjoy a stick or something just so mundane more than this guy enjoyed all of his other things. And I think you're onto something with regards to that piece of contentment. Again, doesn't take away desire for growth and new experiences and things like that, but I think gratefulness is a wonderful way to just tap the brakes and just to behold something, not just see it and be like, oh, I'm grateful I posted Post-it notes or whatever. It's like to take it into yourself for a second, become part of it, be like, wow, if this was not here, I'd be a little bit less than, or something like that. So yeah, I'm with you. That contented piece is super powerful.
Yeah, I love, if you are someone out there who is managing a team, right? You're leading a team, you own a business, the power of writing, small gratitude letters and being specific, right? Not just I'm grateful you're on the team, but maybe identifying a character strength. To me, when someone acknowledges a particular character strength of mine, it's one thing when someone says, I like a skill that I have, like a job skill, or you're good at as a psychologist, or whatever, or those things. But when they start saying, hey, I really, love your, the wisdom that you share. I love the empathy that you have, right? I love, just your grateful heart. Those things, when it starts to speak to my character, that's the stuff that I hold on to, and that tends to resonate for a long time, right? So the ability to write a small letter.
Yeah, you know what I did? I'm holding up a piece of stationery, with the letter A for my last name, and this week I wrote 3. It was to my nephews and to my son, and just wrote them a letter. Somebody had wrote me a letter with their, kind of their stationery, and it was super impactful. And yeah, and you're right. If you speak to someone's character, you speak to their, you and I talk about this a lot, right? Their identity, what they identify with most of all. Yeah. Those things that are most bedrock, most precious, most courageous to them, and you validate that. I mean, that's what we should all be doing, right? Not just, hey, dude, you got great hair. I'm not going to tell, but when I look at a friend of mine and say, it took courage to make that call or to make that step or hit that goal, or, that's the kind of stuff you're just like, oh my gosh, I can run through a brick wall right now. It's powerful. And to put it in writing,
it really is, right? You can hang on to that forever. And I think doing that in a text, doing that in email, that's certainly super powerful too. I think there's something about the old school, right? Like written letter, that's just my personal preference. But anything that you can keep going back to, there's something that's really significant about that. So, um, well, I think hopefully we've given people a few things to think about, right? How to take something out of just, checking a box, going through the obligatory motions, right, of trying to be grateful. I think we all know that it's good for us to be grateful,
Yeah.
but when you start then actually turning this into, well, this is just who I am, right? And you start making an emotional connection with those things you're grateful for, that's where you start to receive the transformational benefits of gratitude, right? And
Life
you start
changing.
then bringing that into your family. You start bringing this into your business. I promise you, people, you talk about the one to run through a brick wall. If you create a business culture, right, that
Mm.
is got an identity around being grateful, like, hey, the owner, my boss, man, I can tell he really appreciates me, right, and he consistently, makes me feel that way. You will have a team that wants to rise up to do their very best work, right? You will have people doing their most creative work. It's amazing what that does when you start to create the culture is really another way of saying kind of collective identity, right?
Yeah.
It's another way of saying family identity, or work culture is a work identity. And so, when you start to create one that's based on gratitude and being grateful, it really is collectively transformational.
And I'll just,
So,
as we kind of wind it down, I'll just make the invitation then, right? If you're listening to this and this is resonating with you, but you're really not sure how to implement, a lot of this really then just goes back to identity. It's your own understanding, radical clarity around, those things that describe you, your authenticity, what's authored in here. And it has to come from that place. Otherwise it's just stuck in your head and it's all the shoulds and not the coulds, and it's not internalized into joy. So if that's just something that you're like, man, I like this, but it's not quite connecting, then reach out to Dr. Andy or myself, and I'd
yeah.
love to help you or your company, your church, anybody that you think would benefit from this to really, laser in on that bedrock.
I'll throw one more thing out there, right? Just the last little tidbit is
Yeah.
I think there was a time where I practiced gratitude through an extrinsically motivated perspective, right? I knew there was benefits in it. So I was doing it transactional. I was like, all right, I'm going to do this checkbox, and then I'm going to get all these, rewards. I'm going to start
Yeah.
to be happier. I'm going to do better at my job and make more money, right? But I was doing it because of the rewards it produced, these external rewards. I wasn't doing it, right, because, hey, this is something I'm freely choosing to do because I genuinely feel grateful, right? And this
Yeah.
is something I want to express because it's consistent with, the strengths I want to build, and the impact I want to have. When you start to express gratitude and it's clearly intrinsically motivated, that is the key. You will not get the benefits if it's extrinsically motivated. If you're like, hey, I'm going to show these people I'm grateful because afterwards they're going to, give me business, or they're going to work harder. People feel that. It feels transactional, right?
Yeah.
People see right through it, and it feels like you're actually giving them a burden, right? It's like, I'm giving you this gratitude, but why do I feel like there's something attached to it?
Yeah.
Whereas when you do it through the intrinsically motivated, it feels free, it feels safe, and people, that's where it really lands.
Mm.
So
Yeah, I love that.
uh,
That's a great way to tie it off. What a wonderful subject today.
yeah, obviously we hope as people enter into this Thanksgiving holiday, right, and the holidays in general, it's a great time to be grateful, right? It's a great time to actually feel the head and the heart connection to gratitude. It absolutely is game changing. However, if you need help with that, right, if you want to create a grateful, work environment, you want to create a grateful family, let us know. I mean, that's the work we do, and it's awesome. We get every day to see breakthroughs and see people really start to internalize these things, so they're making that connection where it starts to really be authentically expressed. So
Yeah.
happy Thanksgiving, everyone, and we appreciate any and all perspectives. We love some of the interaction we get to have. Sometimes people do private messages, sometimes they are commenting on this. But we really love getting a chance to engage, and seeing different people's thoughts, and the feedback they have is awesome. So we
Yeah.
appreciate you.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.